Hello, everybody. I hope you're all settled in your seats and are warm and comfortable because despite it being cold outside, at least it is in Joburg. This masterclass series is heating up. We're into episode 3 of 9 in season 2. The Daily Maverick is partnering with the ACA and MASA on this initiative. And if you don't know about either of these institutions, please visit acasa.co.za or marketingsa.co.za. As a professional marketer, you can earn 6 CPD points per session in each of these episodes. And we've had over 500 participants in each of our previous episodes. And if you've not seen those, you can get hold of them at events.dailymaverick.co.za. Click on that link and please sign up if you haven't already. I'm David and I'm joined by my colleague Khaya, who's actually sitting on my right-hand side. So I'm going to try and not look to my right every now and then. He's right here and he's going to be asking some questions of our two special guests. Let me introduce them. Firstly, the chair of the ACA. This is Gillian Rightford, who is an advocate for the transformative power of commercial creativity. I love that line, Gillian. Gillian owns her own business called Ad Therapy and delivers consulting, training, lecturing, and coaching aimed at improving skills, relationships to achieve better results. She's currently executive director of the ACA and lead for the Effie Awards in South Africa. As if she doesn't have enough to do, Gillian is also founder, creator, and author of the School of Thought, which is an online community. If you haven't checked it out, check it out, please. It's for knowledge sharing and talent building. She has extensive agency side experience, including running one of South Africa's most creative shops in the late 90s, the mid to late 90s, being Hercules DBM, which was part of the Jupiter drawing room at that stage. Welcome, Gillian. Good to have you.
Thank you, David. Good to be here.
Next, good stuff. Next, Carl Willoughby, who's currently Chief Creative Officer at TBWA Hunter Scorus. Nice creative background there, Carl. You've got a blank canvas to work with. He's current chair of the Creative Circle. Carl has been in the TBWA group for over 10 years, and prior to that has had creative leadership roles including creative director at Ogilvy, previous roles at King James, JWT, and FCB, amongst others, including a stint in the UAE. Carl was ranked the #1 executive creative director in South Africa by the Luries in 2021 and has produced award-winning work at Cannes, The One Show, DNAD, Luries, Penduring, and Bookmark Awards. Running out of awards there to give you credence there, Carl. I've had the privilege of working with Carl and he's a true gentleman. So welcome, Carl. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
Thank you to both guests for their time. It's a service to the industry and they're giving up their time freely. So thank you very, very much in advance for doing that. Please do ask questions. This is a real opportunity for anyone to ask questions in the audience on the chat. We have someone helping us collect those statements or questions that you want to make, but please do be crisp and clear in your statements so that when we read them back, and ask them as questions back to Carl or Gillian, we can represent you well. All right, let me start off with this little statement just to contextualize the conversation around nurturing creativity. That's our topic today. There's a phenomenon in marketing called inertia, which many of you might be familiar with, and it means that if you're a big brand, that all the benefits of awareness generated or new ideas launched in the category tend to flow to you as the biggest brand. It's kind of people sleepwalk into the brand choices they've always made because they know and trust those brands. And, brand size therefore has an incredible influence over advertising profitability, right? The efficiency of advertising to do its job by a factor of more than 20, actually. And if you want to look that up, Google a guy called Paul Dyson, really good research. Importantly, the thing next to that, which has the most power, right, to improve the efficiency of advertising and therefore profitability at the end, is creativity by a factor of 12. And that is an incredible statistic. And given that, I want to direct this first question to you, Gillian, if you don't mind. In the context of creativity being the sharpest weapon that we have, that we can control, because size is kind of something which happens. There's a lot of talk in the industry around a crisis in creativity. and in the creative industry. And what is that about, Gillian? I mean, can you comment on that? Do you think creativity is in crisis, or is there something else at play here?
I know the research that references that creativity is in crisis, and I think that there is a crisis that is in the industry, not necessarily in creativity. I think it is hard for agencies to sell good creative work. It's hard for agencies to be remunerated properly and well for good creative. And I mean, just to build on your opening statement there, creativity is the second biggest and most effective lever for growth. So if we can, after brand size, so if we can assume that what every marketer wants is growth, creativity has to be in their toolkit. Why is it difficult for agencies to get work across the line? It's because there is a perceived risk, and the risk is actually misplaced. The risk is actually about not being creative. But I think the reason why we've landed up in this situation, I heard somebody describe it as the last decade of digital, where we kind of weren't quite sure whether digital built brands, and it was very short term, and it was very functional, and we were pushing a whole lot of other stuff that way, and we were saving creative for other things. But what we realize now in the latest research is that digital is, of course, as creative as anything else. In fact, if not more. So I actually think we're in a great place, because I think we're opening up to the reality where we face the canvas that we play on. But also what's starting to happen is that CEOs, who generally are not interested in this stuff, and CFOs are starting to understand the dollar multiplier effect of creativity. And they are starting to push down onto their CMOs to say, are we making the best possible work here? Because I know it's more effective. And the CMOs are going, I don't think we are, and I don't think we know how to. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity for the industry.
Well, that's very well put. And I think recognizing the problem and particularly making that a leadership issue is what you put your finger on there, which is a lovely, I guess, opportunity for change, right, in the industry. So, Carl, let me take you up on this. What's your thought on this? Do you share Gillian's perspective, or the other perspectives you'd like to bring to that question?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, Carl. Can you hear us?
Yeah, you froze for.
Say something.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah. Just go ahead, Carl.
You wanted me to comment on the CEO? Okay, apologies.
Yes. Sorry.
I mean, I think creativity is in a weird space. I mean, we've come off a lot of conversations around Cannes and thought leadership stuff. I think creativity is struggling. I think I'm excited based on what Gillian's saying about the space that we're in, but I don't know if it's translating all the way through. To be honest, I think there's lots of thoughts around the stresses that exist on the CMO's shoulders. You're balancing profitability. You're balancing a lot of different things, rightly so. This element of risk is a major one, right? So when you're putting work on the table that creates some sense of risk, it's tough to just welcome that. There was a great thing. I don't know if you know, Damon Stapleton has this book, which I was lucky to get a copy of, and he spoke about this difference between like and love, and the difference between that is risk. And it's very hard in our day-to-day when we're putting work on the table to get people to buy, and it's easy to point fingers. I don't, because from a marketing side of things, there are so many challenges, but it's hard when you're sitting on the other side of the table and people are presenting work to you that makes you feel uncomfortable. And it's hard to just embrace that. There's so many factors that kind of govern how that work that you put on the table kind of moves forward. And I guess the factors are around trust and belief and understanding that creativity can add value to your bottom line. And I don't know if I don't know. I'm very excited to hear that that's the second most important lever, but I'm not sure that that is translating all the way through to all the marketing boardrooms. And that's not a criticism. Very easy to criticize because I do sympathize with the challenges that everyone's facing.
Yeah.
But it's hard to just embrace that, and I think that's what we're facing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you, Carl. It's definitely not taken on board. Let's put it that way by right the way through the value chain of marketing. I want to touch quickly on, before Khaya is going to ask a question, but I want to touch quickly on something you've just mentioned, this discomfort in presenting work. I just want to deal with that quickly while you're on the line here. Are the biggest ideas, the biggest, boldest, bravest ideas that you present, are those the ones that make you feel most uncomfortable when you're presenting them because there is inherent risk in being accepted by clients? Not, do you get that feeling when you're presenting work?
I think I get excited about great work.
Yeah.
Right. And like when we're going into a room, I've got and I say maybe this is a criticism, like and this is a criticism, even within our network, where we say sometimes our work is very good. Not the network, sorry, within the industry, is that sometimes our work is very good strategically. I think maybe even South Africa is guilty of that. Our work does everything right. We're quite responsible, and I guess in a world that's kind of seeing the rise of pattern behavior with the use of AI and stuff, I think we've become very good at solving problems, but I don't know if we are as nervous about the work that we're presenting as we should be.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
Because I do think we get excited about work that's right, and the work that this is the strategic platform, and this work is a slam dunk. It's like a slam dunk for this, but I don't know if I'm criticizing. I'm taking this also on the chin. I think we also have to kind of raise the bar and go, oh my God, we're going to present this stuff, and we're so worried about the client firing us. We're so worried about being told, I don't want Carl in the business anymore. Like, what is this guy thinking? So, and it's a tough thing, right? But I think maybe the space needs to welcome that a little bit of the crazy. And I don't, it's crazy when you take creative and you put crazy in the same thing. It's like we posted a video yesterday from Creative Circle at Suhail. He was the CMO for KFC. It's a piece of work that he was commenting on in the process around what he felt led to the success of that piece. And he was saying, you brief creatives to come up with crazy stuff. They're going to come up with crazy stuff. Yeah. But I think the issue that we're facing these days is we do work that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a little bit of that first thing about the brand size. We do work that's right for that brand.
Got you.
And I think it's tough, right? So it's tough to break that.
Yeah, absolutely, Carl. Look, there's a mentor of mine who sadly is not with us anymore, but we would know, Andy Rice, who used to use this term, profitable discomfort. So if you're not feeling uncomfortable with the work and making the client feel a little uncomfortable, you're not pushing it far enough, which is, I think, exactly what you're putting your finger on there. All right, let's move on to
yes. Can I just give you one of my favorite quotes, which is from a guy called Nils Leonard, who is an agency called Uncommon. And he says, he quoted something from his wife. And she said, you've got to stop talking about being brave and the clients needing to be brave. Firefighters are brave, you sell cheese.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I think it goes to what Carl's saying is there should be an excitement, but there's a sense that I'm being so brave if I do this.
Yeah.
You're not being brave, you're actually doing the right thing for the brand, and that you're going into creativity as an effectiveness driver. So I just love that. You don't have to be brave.
That's lovely. And it's incumbent on people as creatives to actually push for work that does that. All right, let's on my right-hand side is Khaya. Now, Khaya has been a creative in an agency. He was a writer. He is a writer, in fact. He writes books as well. And he's also been a client, right? So an interesting kind of mix. He's been on the client side at both Coca-Cola and Heineken. And I know he's got a burning question to ask. So Khaya, over to you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, like you said, I've been a creative myself, a writer, just to lend credibility, not to brag. I'm also a multi-award winning writer in the industry and also an award-winning client. So I've been on both ends where you kind of push work as well as you can. So I think, Carl, for you, this is the question that I have is, do marketers grasp creativity as well as they should? Or is it assumed that there is an understanding because they have the power to say yes or no?
Yeah, I don't know if marketers do. Not a criticism, so I've got to be careful that I don't get cancelled.
Well,
But I think
you're not gonna lose any time, so being honest. So when I hear this,
I think I think creativity. I think the very good marketers do understand it,
Yeah.
and I think there are those marketers. We do have those marketers in South Africa. But generally, the more experienced ones do understand that, and the experienced ones kind of push for that. But often we don't necessarily get to interact, not on our day to day all the time. You know, there is there is a complexity within the corporate world. I think not just for the CMO, but for the marketing kind of let's say layer, where you've got to manage up.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of fear in work. I think there was an interesting thing about when creatives put work on the table that's pushing the boundaries. The response is literally to throw up. Often from marketers out of fear, because you don't know, you're caught in like, is this a good idea? Am I being crazy if I do this? So many things that I would imagine go through the marketer's mind as creatives present. And I don't know. I think there are a lot of things that govern the process, govern the approval of work, govern the approval of what work works, and I don't think it's because the creativity is the goal. I think there are a lot of other things in between, other obstacles in between, and I think that's what's
Process is the
governing the
enemy.
process. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it shows.
Yeah.
It does show.
Yeah. Okay. Very well put.
I mean, I suppose like the follow-up question I think for me to that is, you know, if the industry itself, does enough to make sure that clients value, and I think that there's a difference between valuing, bold and brave ideas and understanding why you should embrace bold,
Yeah.
bold ideas. Because I mean, one could argue that actually, being responsible is probably the most irresponsible thing you can do for a brand,
Yeah.
especially when changes. So, I mean, have we trained clients, to be safe and to want speed and sameness?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I don't think we're doing enough as an industry, if that's your question about clients. I think it's and the standard. I think there's so many things that complicate the industry around standards. I think and I'm going to say this. I'm going to dip into the awards thing for just a second, but there's a role for awards, right? And for the record, just on that, I'm getting contacted because we had the interim results for Creative Circle. So I think there's pictures and stuff going on, and everyone's wanting the official rankings just to that point, because as an agency, because that's a requirement for apparently a pitch that's happening right now.
Yeah.
I think awards have a purpose, but I think awards have been clouded with so many different things. Right? It could feel selfish. It could feel like there's things around it that's not necessarily above board. There's so many things that cloud the awards space. But the purpose of awards is to help agencies and marketers and brands distinguish themselves from another by whichever metrics. And so there's a role for that, right? But I think when we speak to our clients about awards, it feels like it's always selfishly driven. It's not. It's about your brand being distinguished from another brand, because that's the basis of advertising, in my opinion. We don't do enough as an industry. I remember I was fortunate enough to judge at one show in it was the Dominican Republic. It was work, just for the record, it was really work. But I met a Mandy. She's a ex-South African, and she was judging. She's I think a partner CCO at an agency in Melbourne, Australia. And I asked her, "How are you guys doing work?" I asked her about their market. How are you guys doing things? And she said, "We've got to educate our clients so much. We've got to put so much effort. We've got to do so much inspiration, so many talks, so many things, just so that there's a grasp of what we're trying to do." And I asked her, "Does it work?" And she said, "Yes, but it's a lot of effort."
Okay.
And I think maybe that's a responsibility on the industry to do more with our clients to educate them. Not educate, it sounds like it sounds a bit higher purpose, but I think just to create an understanding of, because I think that second lever of business, creativity is such a powerful thing. But why? I don't understand why, if that is so powerful, why is that not embraced? Because maybe process gets in the way, maybe corporate structures get in the way. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you, Carl. I'm going to go to you, Gillian, because I think, and I know you want to make a point here, but I want to ask you at the same time, could you ask this question from Krana, because it relates to what Carl's just said. Is creativity inherent in a person, or can it be taught? So while you're making your other comment, if you could think about that, that'd be great.
Okay, so I've been doing a lot of training into the industry for 19 years, so I can give you my perspective on what I've seen. And I will also answer the question. So I loved the quote that Picasso made, that every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up.
Beautiful.
And we are all inherently creative. Commercial creativity is slightly different because it comes with assumed risk. The problem with evaluating that risk is that a lot of marketers don't have the tools to evaluate that risk. They don't know how to evaluate the risk. So how do you evaluate risk? Firstly, you understand, one, that creativity is effective. So you need to understand why we need this thing. I sometimes reframe it as innovation. Businesses love innovation, but they're scared of creativity.
Yeah.
Hang on, aren't they the same thing, right?
Yes.
So reframe creativity as a risk. That's the first thing. Secondly, it's a business imperative that you do this better. Not asking nicely, you have to do it better because it is more effective, it is more efficient, it is a dollar multiplier. So if you're not doing this well, you're not doing your job well, right? So that's the thing. I didn't say that, but I mean, I'm saying it is on you as a marketer to get as good at this skill as you possibly can. So you're really good at a whole bunch of other things, brilliant, but this is as important as the other things. So you have to upskill. How do you upskill? You watch, you read, you consume, you speak to your agencies, you speak to Carl, you say, why was this so good? Why was this? Start understanding what good looks like. Have a very clear view of what good looks like. And then understand a few tools of how to evaluate. I mean, how do you evaluate what's put in front of you? For people like Carl, me, Khaya, you, David, we've seen hundreds of things that we've asked to evaluate on a daily basis. And it's not always easy. Like even sometimes I think, well, I don't know if I like that. I don't know. I think I don't like it. But then I run through a system in my head, which is in my head, that helps me give feedback and actually break it down into bits that will determine whether it's good or not. There's a gut feel, and then there's the how do I give feedback. Marketers need to learn those tools. So you've got to understand the why and you've got to understand the how. And it's no accident that the marketers around the world that have invested deeply in training creativity are doing very well. The executives, the Heinekens, the Coca-Colas, the people who actively invest in training their own marketers are reaping the rewards.
Very nice, Julian. Thank you. That's very, very well said. To that point, I want to ask Carl this question around inside of an agency, right? So I'd love to come back to you, Julian, on this point inside of the marketing environment. You know, the examples you've just mentioned are fantastic. How are people doing training and development around creativity? Because that's quite an interesting question. For you, Carl, I mean, how do you give your creative teams the oxygen they need to be more creative?
Yeah, I think we need to do more. But what we currently do is well, actually, to come back, we try and create the space for people to do their best work.
Okay.
So that means giving them the right time where possible within our parameters. We do a thing where we do a weekly basis called the 9 a.m. Club. So we get people to come in and do talks. So just on various topics. I know it sounds weird, but it's an hour with popcorn on a Wednesday morning. David, if you want to come in and do a session, please, I'll schedule it. But it helps people just inspire on different topics across various spaces. So we get people from film, we get people, production companies, AI, tech, everything. So we kind of keep doing that. We've got quite a good, we're lucky to be part of a network that has a training program. So we send our guys overseas to the Right Academy Master Gunners. So we have a program that helps them train abroad as well, which is really good for us. But the one thing we want to do is we speak about encouraging creativity, and we make sure that that is our goal, and we make sure that everyone is aligned to that. We're not trying to, and I get a lot of slack for that within the agency as well, when people think that certain things are worthy of acknowledgement versus what I really feel is worthy of acknowledgement.
Okay.
And I've got to keep that thing firm. We celebrate, we're calling it now fuel and fire. The fuel is the stuff that drives the agency, keeps the lights on, and then the fire is the work that we all really love celebrating as well. And our big challenge these days is getting the fuel to be the fire. But we make sure that everyone understands the standard, and that's very important. And we can't be gray with what that standard is, semi-pregnant with that standard. It's got to be crystal clear.
Okay, that's very good. I'd love to hear from Gillian on this point, and then come back to you, Carl, to understand how do you define that standard? I mean, is it just your own personal experience, or is there something else that you use to kind of, I guess, measure it? Gillian, what's your thought on this?
Ironically, what I often do in my training with marketers is I will show them, and this goes to Carl's previous point about awards getting a bit of flack. I will show the clients the Lurie's criteria for success, and they're very clear, relevant to the brand, relevant to the audience, well crafted, strong insight, whatever the 5 things are. I show them this, and then I say, are there any of these that you wouldn't want your work to have?
Okay.
And of course, they're none, because everybody wants their work to have those. So the thing is to give them a set of criteria to judge against. And for someone like Carl or me, or somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, it becomes instinctive. I had a client at Unilever many years ago, and he said to me, how many pieces of creative do you judge a year? And I said, hundreds, thousands, I don't know. We judge all the work that comes through before we bring yours back. We judge the work of our competitors. We judge the work of your competitors. We look at award shows. We consume the outdoor board on the way home. We're filtering, we're judging, we're assessing all the time. That's what we do. He said, I judge the 3 that you put in front of me once a year, and I am thoroughly incapable of giving you an opinion. And I thought, that's amazing.
Wow.
How honest is that? But that's the thing, is they've got to have the framework, and they've got to have the confidence to back their decision. But also the big issue that is sort of being spoken about right now, but is not being, things are being done about it, is the culture of creativity. And the culture of effectiveness that allows those risky decisions to be made.
Yes.
So one of the companies I've done work with has a beautiful program. They're training everybody to do all these wonderful things. But at the bottom line, their people are saying there is no culture of creativity here.
Right.
So until you answer the culture piece, and Carl mentioned, agencies operating in fear. There's a fear factor that a lot of marketers have as well in buying work that is a little bit, risque or dangerous or whatever it isn't.
Yes.
But so they just need the framework, and they need the confidence, and with educating themselves comes confidence.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that confidence, it's confidence comes from riding the bike, right? So you want to do it over and over and over again.
I do it over
Also,
and over and over again.
you
Yeah.
need to be you need to be allowed to ride the bike in the first place inside an environment that encourages you to do that. Is that fair to say?
And you need to be able to fall. You need to be,
Ah,
you must graze your knees once or
yes,
twice.
yes.
Because if you don't graze your knees once or twice, you're not going to know not to do that thing that made you graze your knees. But it's part of the learning process. And the problem is it's an add-on in some instances. To Carl's point earlier, marketers are incredibly busy.
Yeah.
They are under siege in their own businesses very often. They're not always at the top table. They're fighting for airtime, and they have huge responsibility on their shoulders. So
Yeah.
now you're saying, hey, I want you to go and watch all the can reels, and I need you to develop a framework to evaluate your work. And they're like, are you mad? I've actually got like my quarterly report to do. So
Right.
it's kind of like it's not always seen as core to their
That's
role, and I
great.
think it should be. And
It's
also
an
it's fun.
investment. Yeah, it's an investment in yourself and in the business. Okay.
You know what, I think I just want to add, to the point that you're making, as I don't know if I'm audible. Am I audible on your end
Yeah,
there? All right. So the question I suppose that I do want to pose, or I mean, when I was a client and as a former creative, that was the exact problem. I think that the role was kind of created where I was when I was at Coke, was that a lot of the marketers, if they are lucky, will produce one ad every 2 or 3 years, right? So if you're only producing something once every 2 or 3 years, you have no training and grounding in terms of what is good work and what makes average work, because all you know is to tick boxes. And I think when you're speaking about the framework, is that if you don't have a framework, you can't tell the agency to say, okay, you have freedom, but then within this framework. But when you don't have a framework, you don't know what freedom means, right? For them to be able to create the work. And obviously I was in a fortunate position where we were able to train even our own agencies and train the marketers in terms of, how to achieve, the best creative work. And in that result, I mean, we won, in that period I was there, we won something like 60 odd awards, and all pretty, effective at the same time, because there was a partnership between the client and the agencies. And so, but anyway, here's a very tough question for both of you that comes from Peter. How can you overcome systematic barriers to a sustainable career?
So, sustainable career barriers. I don't know if I hope I can give it a stab, but I think I'm going to say this from the creative side. One of the things I think is really important is to have thick skin in this industry. To quote, I mean, Damon has a very inappropriate book title, but he speaks about when, as a creative in the industry, I'm saying from a creative point of view, as a creative in the industry, when you get promoted to being a creative director, you become the target for everyone. So you are targeted both. There's a sense of accountability that happens as a creative, which I think is good, and ownership when you become a creative director, but you become the target. You become the target from a responsibility for the brand, duty to the agency, standard of the work, and you become the throat to choke. And it's tough. So having a thick skin is important, and not being. And I really believe that our superpower is creativity, is our insecurity, right? As creatives, is our insecurity, right? So as a person who's like got certain ambitions within the industry, we're also insecure, but that's what makes our work good, great, creative. You have to have a thick skin, and you have to roll with the punches, and you have to just keep going. It's a little bit like the training thing with clients. It's not a job that ends. It's a job that's perpetually continuing. You don't stop educating. You don't stop inspiring. You keep doing that. It doesn't stop, because you get a cycle. Clients move up, clients move out, clients move on, but you got to keep doing that. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I think you have to behave. I keep pushing for great work I keep feeling like when we've done a great piece, we can do more and we can do better. And I keep feeling that it's a stepping stone to the next piece, because that for me is growth, right? Like I can't rest on my laurels. I can't. I will stop. I'll stagnate. So mentally, I have the mindset that I'm only as good as the best piece I've just done, and then I have to keep going. But I also know to keep going, I'm going to face other obstacles, and I have to develop a thick skin, because I'm going to be shot all the time, you know?
I think the thing that Peter's referring to there as well is constraint, right? Clients are asking you to do more with less all the time. And how do you be creative in that kind of environment? And I think actually, I love the idea of constraints leading to opportunity. And we have this philosophy in our business called can if thinking, which is instead of saying we can't because, we say, well, we can if we think of it as this, or we mix it, so we access resources in a new way. So actually, they can be doors, constraints can be doors to opportunities to think more creatively about problems. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I could just add a little bit to that. I mean, I wasn't sure exactly what the sort of systemic issues Peter was referring to, but there's a wonderful book called Drive by Daniel Pink, and he talks about the factors that motivate creative thinkers, and we are all creative thinkers. I think we're called knowledge workers or something like that, but basically we are all creative. And he says the three things that motivate creative thinkers are autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Yes.
We have very little autonomy in the work that we do, but we can find it in some ways. We don't always have the opportunity for mastery, which is a problem. We need more time. We need more craft. We need all of those things. But we can also, he sometimes says, you know, you can also go and play in a band and, you know, find your mastery that way. The big thing is about purpose. And the purpose comes with working in the right place. And not every place is going to suit every person. If you're in a place which you feel is toxic, if you're in a place which you feel limits you, if you're in a place which you feel abused, you know, I mean, these things happen. You're not, you know, some places are just horrible places to work. But to Carl's point, you need to be given the freedom to be good. And if you're not getting that, you either need to make yourself indispensable, for sure, call out any real nasty behavior, or find the place that allows you to be the best that you can.
Love that. That's beautiful. And in fact, I think it answers, there's two other questions which are related to one another. And I just want to double check that we're answering them, because I want to have some participation from the audience here. But Haiti and Ntando, Haiti firstly asks, how can we bring more recognition around the role of creativity into corporates? And Ntando asks, how can marketers foster creativity in low resource or risk adverse environments? So I think some of the things you're mentioning there, Gillian, in terms of
I think a lot of it is educating up, so making sure that the C-suite is on board with it, and likewise the C-suite. You know, I watched that interview Carl was talking about with the KFC marketing director in Thailand, Suhail, and he said he realized, you know, his job as CMO was to get out of the agency's way. Once the idea was landed and bought, then get out of the way. So I think that more needs to be done by marketers internally to their leadership teams. And honestly, there's no shortage. There is no shortage of data. And the data, what I love about the research now is it all comes from the same people who've been telling us other things that we believe for many years. So the Kantar, you know, the Ipsos's, this isn't some like 2-bit research company down the road. The big leaders in research globally are going, hello, people, this is it. So I think that it's actually a fun thing to do. I mean, I think that marketers should do that internally, and they should ask themselves if they're creating the space for good work, and if they're allowing culture to grow, to allow the work to land, or where those blocks are, where's it being cut down, and eliminate those.
Yeah, lovely. Removing obstacles from
Yeah.
the process. Yes.
Yeah.
But I wanted to put a tangible, if I may, just a tangible thing to that point is we were doing some internal stuff with one of the brands that we help out on from a creative circle point of view. And one of the questions was, and we kind of sat there and we went, oh, that's not a thing. Is creativity a KPI
Good
within
question.
your business? So some businesses have that. I know that. I don't want to call out brands here,
Yeah.
but some businesses have that because those businesses inherently recognize that, and you'll know some of those organizations. Some of those organizations have creative ranking scales, rating scales for the work to help take what feels like an intangible thing and make it more tangible. So the scale helps that. It doesn't address it fully, but it does help because it creates alignment. But
Yes.
do our local brands have creativity as a KPI for the job role?
Right. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? So
Yeah.
Lovely. We are inundated with questions. I think Khaya is sitting with about 6 sheets of paper in front of him with loads of questions. And I've said to him, you choose. So there's lots of questions coming your ways, guys. The chat is very busy.
Oh, fantastic. So this is another question from Peter. It says, and I love this question. It says, clients say they want edgy, funky, cool, young, all those buzzwords, but then immediately retreat when they get it. How do you manage that fear response?
It's a tough thing. It speaks to the misalignment of what of a good idea. I think that's the bigger issue. It's the same old analogy of saying paint the wall green, but your green and my green are very different. It could be different hues, right? It could be avocado green, apple green, but it's green and it's edgy. And I think that needs to be managed because you can spend a lot of time and effort trying to do edgy work that just doesn't go anywhere because and you as an agency you figure that out over a period of time. You go, okay, cool, this is swimming uphill. So how do we pick our battles? How do we manage our energy? And that happens within agencies. But it's tough. I think it goes back to that education of making sure that, but this is the green we're talking about. Oh, okay, cool. Can we agree on that? Because I think give someone an open thing and just say, we're going to do edgy. They're going to come back with edgy, and you've got to make sure that you're on the same edgy. It's a very tough thing to manage.
That's the freedom of a tight brief thing, Carl?
100%.
Okay.
But I think also Carl, you must have heard this a million times. We want work like Nando's. Okay. Nando's has got a brand persona that allows it to speak in that tone.
Yes.
Brand does not have that persona. Edgy is a bad brief. But having said that, what I have picked up and what I'm seeing, one of my takeouts from Cannes this year is brands take themselves too seriously, and there's a playfulness that is allowed within the brand parameters that consumers actually respond incredibly well to. So I would actually say it's a really bad brief that give me edgy. I'd like go back and rewrite your brief, please. That would be awesome. But also, do you have the right to be edgy? Would be my question. And if not, what you're looking for is breakthrough. How else do we give you breakthrough? How else do we give your brand what it needs? Yeah.
Great answer, Gillian. Thank you. Khaya, any more questions there?
Yeah, I think some of it is just like it's just clients not really not having the language for creativity, so they end up using words like cool and edgy.
Yeah.
So they end up misdirecting their agencies. So another question from Melissa. Melissa, we are being encouraged to embrace AI. How can we keep up with AI while staying unique with our own creativity?
I can talk a little bit to that. I think there was Gillian, I don't know if you went to Tor Myron did a talk at Cannes and he spoke about the good news is he had a quote around AI. He said the good news is AI isn't going to save us. I've got it somewhere. The good news is AI isn't going to save us, isn't going to kill us. The bad news is AI isn't going to save us. We've got to save ourselves. And I think the thing with AI around, we've got to embrace it. I had to do a talk, to do a lot, so I did a lot of research on this about AI and I think the reality is, it's how do you use AI with what you're doing. We ultimately are still people who communicate to people. We don't communicate to bots, or we communicate to people, so we'll always need this emotional thing, but we've got to embrace AI. We've got to use it as a tool. It's going to supercharge everything. It's going to do a lot of stuff, and it's also going to create a space that I don't know what that will look like. But I do know this, is that I've got to keep up to date. I've got to embrace it. I've got to help myself get to that point to try and clarify what it will look like, because I think there's a space that I don't think we can comprehend yet. We see that there's going to be a novelty of what this does within the industry. Unfortunately, AI is also democratizing creativity, like so many other things have done in the past. Digital photography, editing, CapCut on TikTok, social media. There's the democratization of creativity that's happening, and AI is a massive signal in terms of that shift. But I think as an industry, we've got to embrace it and understand how can we use it to still make better stories, to still connect with our clients in a more specific, personalized manner. It's a tool that we've got to embrace. If we don't, we will get left behind.
I mean, I think that I like to think of it as augmented intelligence, and I think people that talk about it as augmented versus artificial, I think it's more of what it is about. It's less artificial intelligence, but it's more about what we can do with it. So so it's augmented, but the key is, and the ACA ran a seminar on advertising, AI and advertising, and the absolute key takeaway is AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows AI is. So you have to stay current, as what Carl was saying. You have to know how you can learn to use it to your best advantage. And there was a fabulous, I don't know if you've seen it, Carl, the Liquid Death ad that was done, been going around LinkedIn, whatever, recently. And the whole ad was produced in AI. And with AI, it's fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant. But it had a human script. That's the thing. It had a human script. It was directed. The prompts were written by art directors, by directors. So you've got this very, very high quality production at the end. But the human input is critical. For now.
I have a very, very good question here from Omashni. Is it correct to say that data drives creativity these days? What can be measured is dictating what creativity is put forward?
I think data is critical. I think data helps inform insights. I think when you're speaking about data poster campaign in terms of measuring, I think that's good, right? We've got to figure out, we've got to know whether our work is working. So I think that's really important. And I do believe that the relationship between creative and business is important. It's not just creativity for creativity's sake. But I think in terms of informing the work, I think the better the data, and data is just a fancy term for insights for me, if I can be totally honest. For me, data it's the numbers and the information that helps inform what could help you as a brand better connect with your audience. For me, it's critical. I think, yes, we can argue that digital has helped bring the data thing into our world. But if the more things evolve for me, the more I've got to go back to the basic principles. I see data as insights that inform the work, necessary insights. And I think data is necessary in terms of reporting on the work as well, because that helps you optimize. And that's if we can argue maybe digital brought that into our world, into our communication world. Cool, great. Then we can make better work. If this, like Gillian was saying, we've got to fail. It's good to fail. It's good to be able to do that. Cool. Then we got to learn off of that. So those are good things. I think it's very important.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Carl. I'm going to ask this question from Bokhosi because I think it's a really provocative one and a good one. Thank you, Bokhosi. Hi. Is it only marketers that need to be educated? What can creatives be accountable for on their end? They also have to be much closer to business reality. Holding us to account there, Bokhosi. Thank you. Anyone want to have a crack at that, Gillian?
Hi, Bokhosi. Good question. I think, all the really great creatives I've ever worked with have good business brains.
Yeah.
And I think that the great creatives that I've worked with are incredibly strategic. So I think that there is a disconnect sometimes in the language of marketing as it reaches creative. And I think that's the reason for the creative brief, which a lot of marketers don't even know happens. So I would say, again, going back to briefing, write your brief in a way that inspires creative, but you don't have to dumb down the business bits. They get it. They totally get it. But the language, a lot of businesses speak in acronyms and, weird whatever. Is it even for like David and I, like, what does that mean now? So I think it's a way, how do you as a marketer actually engage and inspire and work with your creatives? But also, and Carl, you can pick this up, but also creatives want to know how well things are doing. They want to actually be in on the business end of, did it work, did it not work? And very often they're not.
Yeah.
So I would say bring them closer. And I would say they would want to be brought closer. Carl, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we've
Lost your
lost.
sound there, Carl.
We just
Are you
like I can see. Can you hear me? I can see when creatives get excited about whether their work worked. And I know it sounds weird. Everyone expects that creatives are just, I got an award and all that sort of like self-congratulatory stuff. But creatives get equally excited about whether their campaign worked. Whether their work worked. There is something I wanted to kind of call out on this, just about understanding the client's business. There's a strong correlation between clients that have long-term relationships with their agencies, and that just and the success of the work that works, right? And just that thing is quite important, because that speaks to the trust and understanding of the agency for the client's business, and vice versa in terms of how to work with the agency. And some of those agencies, like we've seen the likes of like Unilever Dove with like I think it's Ogilvy. You can see the success of that this year. It got a long-term award. But I think it speaks to an understanding of your business and you understanding what I need to help drive your business.
Yes.
I think it's very important, because no creative likes working on something that doesn't have any relevance to what your objectives are as a brand.
Right.
Because that's wasted energy, right? So to understand what drives you as an organization is important for us to understand how we can make our work help drive that need, as opposed to wasting energy.
Okay. Lovely, Carl. Thank you.
Can
Yes,
I
go
just
ahead.
add one thing? I think the hourly rate is a problem, because I think that what should be happening, and I watched a fantastic webinar the other day about Tim Williams, who says that AI will mean the death of the hourly rate, and hallelujah to that. The hourly rate has meant that creatives don't spend enough time with the client. They don't spend enough time going to factory visits. They don't go off, and because you've got 6 hours of Carl for this month, and 4 of those is him doing his timesheets. So I think it's about bringing creative closer to the business, and in that idea of reframing innovation, creativity as innovation. I've often said to businesses, use your agencies for innovation, not just to become transactional, to do a transactional brief. We need this done for this media by tomorrow. Actually use their creative brains in the business. And one of my favorite cases that came out of Cannes this year was for a French insurance brand called AXA.
Yes.
And they they I don't know how they came up with it. I'm sure informed by data, but they had a compulsory for bond owners, had the words that if the insurance company would provide a safe refuge if the house was damaged by flood or fire or whatever. And they added, or if it was uninhabitable, they added 3 words, and domestic violence. If your
Brilliant.
home is uninhabitable through domestic violence, we as the insurance company will get in there, we'll come fetch you, we'll put you somewhere.
Absolutely
And
brilliant.
I think Carl, their sign-ups went through the roof.
Yeah.
All the brand love went through the roof. It was an incredible campaign, but it was about problem solving. It wasn't about make me an ad.
Okay. Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of the time here. We have 5 minutes left before we hit past, and I need to start wrapping us up. We could chat about this for the next few hours. Carl, Gillian, myself, and Khaya. I'm going to ask each of you this wrap-up question, and I'm going to include Khaya in that because I want his point of view on this too, which is if you had to ask for anything and you could make that anything happen tomorrow, what change would you make to the industry that would open the door to it being more creative or give the creative process more oxygen? What would that be?
I'll go.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I would say yes to discomfort more often.
Lovely.
And when I worked with Matthew Ball, he had a saying which he would tell our clients, which was surprise, delight, and scare me.
Right.
So I can surprise and delight the consumers who have nothing to be scared of.
Do more scary stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would say the same. And just what you're saying, Gillian, was actually, I think it was last year or 2 years ago at Cannes. It was the CMO and the CFO who were both on stage at Cannes, and they spoke about saying yes to work that makes you feel uncomfortable. And I say that deliberately. The CMO and the CFO, the financial person, understanding that saying yes to work that makes you feel uncomfortable is an important aspect of successful creative work or successful work. So I would say the same.
Beautiful.
I'd say for me, it's probably spending more time, the agency, clients need to spend more time with the creative teams, and the creative teams needs to spend more time with the client. And when I think about when I was CMO, at Telco, we used to spend time when we were brainstorming product ideas with the agency that we worked with. So by the time they got the brief, we didn't have to explain so much. They knew why certain decisions weren't being made. They knew why they couldn't make certain ideas because they were there when the ideation was taking place. We didn't enter awards, but they did some pretty good work. That's all I'm gonna say.
Nice one. Okay, go
Can
ahead.
I add something, David? Sorry, sorry, because now you got me thinking. There was a term at Cannes. It was crowdsource opinions, right?
Okay.
And I think today what's happening with the approval of work, there's a lot more people making those calls and maybe it's because of the fear. So maybe more committees to help approve the work. And I think one of the things, there was a guy from Rethink. He spoke about how do you supercharge the relationship with the key decision makers and make sure that flow has no obstacles in the way. So how do you make sure that you have a relationship with the key decision makers to make sure the work moves, to get into culture? Because it's from Rethink, and they do a lot of work for Heinz, etc., that gets into culture. So I think because of fear, there's a lot more people involved in the decision-making process. How do you remove a lot of the people who don't have to be part of that, empower the people who make the decisions and feel like that's okay from the brand point of view? And then how do you hold that relationship with that decision maker so that work can be supercharged?
Lovely. Lovely.
And I think, David, I would also, if I could wave a magic wand, I would say to marketers, embrace creativity as a strategic tool.
Lovely. Make it cool.
Make a call, learn about it, understand it, reduce your own risk.
Yeah.
So, while we're saying feel discomfort, that discomfort is based on an assessment of risk.
Right.
Be comfortable with the risk, but have the ability to make that assessment.
Brilliant. And make creativity core, I think was the thing you said earlier, which I loved. All right. a quick thank you to the audience for their participation. We have, and I apologize, we haven't got to all your questions. There's a lot. They're there. We will be writing a summary article, which will appear in the Daily Maverick on this particular topic. So look out for that, and we'll share that on various platforms. But thank you very much for participating. Thank you to Gillian and Carl for your very kind offer to come onto this episode and to share your thoughts and opinions and expertise and guidance. And thank you to my co-host here, Khaya, for his wonderful inputs and experience that he's brought to the table as well. Really appreciate your time. Thank you to everyone. I hope you stay warm and have a wonderful Friday and a beautiful weekend ahead. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.